Welcome back to Women's Wisdom with Mrs. Menopause, talking about weight gain during menopause. Yesterday I was talking about how our body adapts and changes through the menopause, and actually when we're gaining weight, the body's actually trying to serve us, but that balance gets out of whack sometimes. And I mentioned the adrenal glands, and I said we need to remember that for future videos. So we're going to talk about that today. And what that is I'm going to talk about stress, and I'm going to talk about a hormone called cortisol, which is a stress hormone. Your adrenal glands sit on top of your kidneys, and they're responsible for producing, amongst other things, they produce cortisol and adrenaline, and these are your fight, flight and freeze hormones. These are our survival hormones. You know, they keep us energized, and they do lots of good things. But when this is elevated long term, chronically, this is when they can cause us all sorts of problems. And this is what I want to talk to you guys about today, because it's really important. I believe this is key. This would be the number one thing I would look at with women going through the menopause: stress, elevated cortisol levels. This is a big one. So let's get further into it. So you have a natural circadian rhythm during the day, the times you wake up and the times you go to sleep. And we, as human beings, we have this circadian rhythm, and it's to do with daylight. It's really important how it sets, and it's to how the rhythm of our body. And this rhythm can get out of whack for different reasons. And I don't know if you've seen something like this before, but just thought I'd show you this little image here of how the circadian rhythm looks. So this is your cortisol levels. So what starts to happen is, this is in a healthy person. What happens is, in the morning, it's at its highest mid-morning, and this is when you ideally feel most alert, yeah? And then during the day, it starts to gently just kind of drop off as we go into the evening, and we're starting to wind down and hopefully feel a little bit more relaxed, ready to go to sleep. And then what happens is, then in the early hours, this starts to rise again, like 2-3 o'clock, that really common time that people wake up. It starts to rise, and so it goes again. But what happens is, this gets out of whack a little bit. So what can happen is, this morning can be lower. So that feeling that you are exhausted in the morning, the only thing will get you going is your cup of tea or a cup of coffee. To kickstart that back up, it goes up, and it might be up and down a little bit, but what happens is it goes up again in the evening. And people call this second wind, and it can happen, it depends. Sometimes it happens like 11 o'clock at night. People go, oh great, I get this boost of energy and I get loads done. Actually, that shouldn't be happening, and it's that wired or tired kind of feeling. And that's a sure sign that there's something a little bit out of balance in your body. So I hope you enjoyed that visual. For me, it's quite good, isn't it? I like visual stuff. I can kind of identify with that a little bit. So why is this so important to talk about this during menopause? It's so important because when your ovaries start to diminish their functioning, they're not releasing as much hormones, progesterone and estrogen, as they were. Your adrenal glands take up some of that slack. I remember yesterday we talked about how the fat cells also have a role in producing small amounts of estrogen. But here's the thing, your adrenal glands, when they produce your stress hormones, that will take precedent all the time, because these are your survival hormones. They'll take precedent over producing your sex hormones. And this is called the progesterone steal. So the adrenal glands will go, well, what's more important right now? To run away from this tiger that's about to chase after me or whatever, or something, or is it more important for us to produce your sex hormones? And it's going to be your survival. So all the time we're in this stress of the busyness, this long-term stress and business that we all seem to be under, whether it's work, relationships, money worries, just all those kind of things I'm sure you identify with. And then your body just doesn't have a chance then to produce the hormones that keep us stable and happy and leaner and all those things that a lot of women wish they could be during the menopause. So, we as humans, we are designed for acute stress. So an example of acute stress would be a work situation. Maybe you had a confrontation with somebody at work and you had that stress response initiates in your brain. And then what happens is you've got nowhere of dispersing those hormones that have been produced. So they stay in the body. And that stress response just continues. And I'm going to talk about the impact that has. So that's the long-term stress. But in acute stress, what would happen is you'd have an argument with somebody at work. Maybe you would go and have a walk. You'd go and walk it off. You'd be able to go straight out, walk around the corner, and you'd burn off and get rid of those stress hormones. And you'd come back, and that would be the end of the stress response. And that is a healthy stress response, and what we're designed to have, but not this long-term problem that we've got going on now. I've got a big list here of the negative problems associated with elevated cortisol levels, this stress hormone that we seem to be pumping out. Now, some of these are going to sound familiar. Okay, so I've said it makes you feel like the living dead before you have your morning fix of caffeine. You have increased appetite and food cravings, foggy thinking and a poor memory. It can cause belly fat, decrease your muscle mass, increase your body fat and can create a fatty liver, decrease bone density, can make depression and anxiety worse. It can lower or just dissolve your libido. It can cause insomnia. So even though you're exhausted, you can't sleep. Yeah, it can make your menopause symptoms worse. It can make PMS symptoms worse. It can cause digestive issues. Being in stress can cause your digestive system to kind of shut down, if you like, and not work as efficiently, because what's more important, dealing with the tiger or digesting your meal, It can raise your blood sugar levels. It can reduce your ability to burn fat. It can make your cells less sensitive to insulin, so your blood sugar regulation isn't as it should be. And it can raise your levels of fatty acid and triglycerides in your blood, which is really not good for your health. So that's a big list, right? And I'm not saying that you're going to have all of those, but some of those things I've listed are menopausal symptoms as well. So how do you know which is which? So that's quite a long list, and I don't want to cause any more stress or raise your cortisol levels, but actually, some stress is good. It is important for controlling our mood and our well-being. It's important part of our immune system. Inflammation, it's involved in our modulating our blood pressure levels and involved in our connective tissues. It's just when these things get out of whack, that's when we have the problems. You probably know cortisol, you've probably heard of it as anti-inflammatory and immune suppressors when it's synthetically made. Cortisol creams are used for eczema. So it does have a benefit, but it's this long-term stress that's going to cause the problem. Now, I've only got 10 minutes to kind of briefly go over this topic with you, but it's so important to look at this stuff before we're looking at anything else. I just want to read this quote to you. This is from Metabolic Effect, who have put out some great information about hormones and about training and that kind of thing. But this is really important. Listen to this. Insulin and cortisol are a bad hormonal combination for fat loss. These two hormones, when combined together with high amounts over long periods, push the female physiology towards fat storing when calories are high as opposed to building muscles, and reduce the amount of fat burned when calories are low, so you burn muscle instead. This is a bad combination for any woman, but a menopausal woman is affected to a much greater extent. Since insulin and cortisol may be the primary culprits in female belly fat storage, the transition into menopause often results in fat gain, especially around the middle. And yesterday I touched on how important it is to keep up our muscle mass. And it's saying here that these elevated levels of insulin and cortisol may affect that, as well as this belly fat that seems to happen, this, if you like, middle-age spread. Tomorrow I'm going to talk more about insulin as well, because that is the second key thing in your journey with the menopause weight. Definitely. So what can you do to reduce your stress levels? And I'm sure we hear all the time, reduce your stress, but what can you do? Have you actually thought, what is it? What can you put in your day, even if you start with a minute or two of deep breathing? There are supplements you can take as well that help with stress. Get outside, walk outside, get daylight. That's key for resetting your circadian rhythm. Really important. It's very, very relaxing getting outside. Oh, you're going to hate me for this. Take some me time. Whatever you can do, whatever time you can snatch for yourself, if it's having a bath or a nap or painting your nails or whatever it is that floats your boat, you know, just try and get some of that into your day, because it really will make a difference to your cortisol levels. Laughter and fun are instant switches for feeling stressed out. So get onto YouTube and watch something that makes you laugh. Some other ideas are deep breathing, meditation, mindfulness. They're really good ways of reducing your cortisol levels. And there's many complementary therapies as well. I'm sure massage or I don't know, whatever it is you're into, any other thing that's going to help you manage your stress levels. Because as you can see, this is key. There's a direct link between elevated cortisol levels and belly fat. And if that's an area that you're struggling, especially during the menopause, I urge you to look at those different areas. So that literally was a top level look at the effects of cortisol. I'm trying to keep these videos to 10 minutes. I can't go into everything, but tomorrow we're going to talk about insulin. So any comments, any feedback, any questions, put them in the comments, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you.